Oda just revealed a power even more terrifying than Domi Reversi. We already knew that Imu could grant the Gorosei and the Holy Knights power and immortality, and that they were somehow connected, but in this chapter it's revealed that you can't even deny Imu's orders. That's insane. Before we get into Imu, let's start from the beginning. The chapter opens by reminding us that giants weren't always seen as monsters. Trade was improving, the giant marines were doing great things, and Harald was basically seen as a genuinely good king who wanted something better for his people. And honestly, he deserved that reputation. It makes the whole story feel more real. Harald wasn't born a tyrant, he was actually trying. Then we jump to Ida and we get another amazing emotional scene with a side character. Harald returns from his mission, goes to her bar, and tries to cheer her up. They talk for a bit, and then she suddenly collapses right in front of Harald. And the whole time it's snowing, which ties perfectly into the chapter's title. Ida might not be talked about much after this, but she's genuinely great. She and Harald were really cute together, and she even died smiling. I felt really bad for both Harald and Loki there. You can tell Ida meant a lot to them, especially Loki. He suffered in silence, and his father didn't even know his wife had been poisoned. Loki was even prevented from seeing his mother in her final moments, and yet he still fiercely defends Elbaf. After that, it's revealed that Shanks was supposed to be promoted to Holy Knight 14 years ago and received the Deep Sea Pact from Imu, but he disappeared before the ceremony, so Harald had to take his place. Clearly, Shanks learned everything that was happening at Marijoa about Imu, the Holy Knights, and these contracts that are basically like selling your soul to Imu. Most likely it was his initial plan to stay there until the day came, and as planned, he abandoned it all. He then cut all ties with his family and with Imu, literally by losing his arm with Imu's mark on it. We'll come back to Shanks later. Harald travels to Pangaea Castle and actually meets Imu. Imu speaks directly to him, shocking him completely. Then Imu changes Harald's mark to the Depth's Covenant mark, the same one Killingham has in the present. After reading the chapter, I wondered, what if Harald had refused? But the reality is he had no choice anymore. He was already in too deep. He saw Imu face to face and there was no going back. We saw what happened to King Cobra, and we saw what happened to the entire Leloucha kingdom just because Imu wanted to erase Sabo for witnessing her. Imu orders Harald to carve an abyss into Elbaf as a symbol of the bond between them. I'm wondering now if the original 20 kings did the same to their own countries. Maybe there are abysses in Alabasta, Dressrosa, and other kingdoms. Imu also promises Harald that Elbaf will become part of the world government, but after Harald fulfills that order, Imu gives him another one. She commands him to turn Elbaf into a military nation with a fleet as great as the Marines. Of course, Harald tries to resist, but his body starts moving on its own. It appears that the condition of the Depth's Covenant is that no one can deny Imu's orders. This is one of the most terrifying powers we've ever seen in One Piece. It's an exact parallel to selling your soul to the devil. We still need to learn if there's some kind of weakness or if it doesn't work on someone who refuses it from the start. But if Imu can force this contract onto someone she captures, that is not just one of the most terrifying powers, it is the most terrifying power in One Piece. It's like Domi Reversi, but there are theories that Domi Reversi needs certain conditions, like the target needing to be in their homeland. But in this case, it seems Imu can use her power whenever she wants, since Harald was in Marijoa when it happened. That's what Shanks wanted to talk about with Harald in chapter 1152. He had already learned everything he needed to know in Marijoa. He clearly knew about Nika, the Gomu Gomu no Mi, Imu, and about that mark as well. He chose not to sell his soul to Imu, so he quit. And he wanted to warn Harald too, but he was already too late. Maybe instead of chilling in hot waters with Skopper Gaban, he could have prevented this, but never mind. I made a separate video about this months ago, but I'll repeat the idea here. I believe the man marked by flames is someone who escaped Imu's mark. The man marked by flames is still one of the biggest mysteries in One Piece. We don't even have a silhouette, but based on everything we know so far, I believe this character was actually a former Gorosei or Holy Knight who survived Imu's judgment. Chapter 1125 showed us that Imu killed Saturn instantly, cutting off both his power and life. Saturn served for more than 200 years, maybe even 800, yet Imu replaced him within seconds with Garling, like changing a pawn on a board. But here's the strange part. Saturn is the only Gorosei we've seen both 200 years ago and during God Valley. Where were the others? I don't think they were the same Gorosei we see today. I think the lineup changed, and Jupiter is the biggest clue. Jupiter looks much younger compared to the other elders. Many people wondered why, but I think the answer is simple. Jupiter replaced someone, specifically the man marked by flames. When Garling joined, Jupiter was the only one who looked worried or shaken. That reaction makes sense sense if he had gone through the same thing once before, watching an elder fall and then taking their seat. Now, when Saturn died, his body burned away in black flames. What if the man marked by flames survived that same attack long ago? His nickname would literally come from surviving Imu's fire. Blackbeard couldn't find this man for an entire year, even after taking devil fruits, invading Impel Down, and conquering Hachinosu. The fact that this is the one thing he failed to accomplish shows how powerful and clever this person must be. Think about it, if a character had stronger willpower and strength than Harald, strong enough to escape Imu's curse, then it perfectly explains why some people call him a lurking legend. Back to the chapter. After receiving Imu's command, Harald ordered his soldiers to tie him to a pillar and summon Jarul and his sons immediately. Since Hyruddin was out at sea, only Loki and Jarul were summoned to the castle. The chapter ends with the famous portrait of Harald holding his sword. Then we get a line from the narrator and the chapter closes. No matter how he died, it's truly a tragic death. Harald was a good person who wanted only the best for his country, but his ideas weren't the best. He was willing to stand against even himself for Elbaf, but in the end he still had one of the saddest deaths in the series, most likely at the hands of his own son. He was far too strong to die from some random sword strikes, especially while buffed by Imu. Loki was the only one who could stop him. But the real question is, how did Loki, or anyone, kill an immortal Harald? I believe there are two possibilities. Imu gave up on Harald, removed his immortality, and maybe even killed him herself. But then Loki's devil fruit is a counter to Imu's abilities, and I think the second option is much closer to the truth. For example, we've seen that the Gorosei have super regenerative powers, but an extremely high level of Conqueror's Haki can nullify them. Luffy's Haki in Gear 5 and Skopper-Gaban's attacks have both been shown to temporarily stop their regeneration, or even deal lasting wounds. Joy Boy's Haki was strong enough to force the Gorosei back to Marijois, yet Saturn still survived that. Harald wasn't just a random giant. He was insanely strong, capable of fighting rocks, and he was chosen as Shanks' replacement. And Shanks is also an unbelievably strong character. On top of that, Harald had additional power from Imu. Killing him in that state is nearly impossible unless you're extremely strong and can cancel someone's regeneration. Yes, Loki is powerful, but I still think the real key to Harald's death and to overpowering Imu's immortal abilities lies in Loki's devil fruit. This flashback is the perfect time to finally reveal his hyped fruit. We've been waiting for it for a year now. Maybe his monstrous eyes play a role too. We've talked about Harald's tragic life, but honestly, I think Loki's backstory is even sadder. Unlike everyone else, he was hated by his own mother, hated by his village, and even by his own brother. Ida died from poison, and Loki couldn't do anything except destroy the village. Rocks rejected him. Lola, the girl he loved, refused to marry him. Most likely he also had to kill his own father, and later some red-haired guy chained him to a tree. If you think about it, Loki is a real candidate for the top 5 saddest backstories in One Piece. If we pay attention, it even looks like Loki is copying Rox's outfit a bit, since he admires him. But even though both of them act wild, they actually share the same trait. They value their family, and that's something Loki himself will probably never realize. Harald died trusting in his children's abilities. I think Loki's power is going to be something we've never seen before. We already saw that he can use lightning and fire abilities, and we still haven't seen his eye power or his devil fruit. Overall, this chapter was short, heavy, but really good. I think Oda's main goal with this flashback was to show us the importance of Elbaf's pride. If you cast it aside completely in favor of peace, you leave the country and its people open to manipulation. Rox sought power while Harald sought peace, yet both extremes and the love behind their decisions led to their downfall. Even Ida, who advocated for peace, criticized Harald's idea of disregarding part of Elbaf's core culture. There needs to be a balance of strength, peace, and love. I can just feel that the next chapter is going to be insane, but unfortunately we have a 1-week break. Until then, if you want to know more about Loki's future, click the video right here. Thanks for watching. Bye.